Welcome to Deep Impact Investing with Kimberly Griego-Kiel from Horizon Sustainable Financial Services. In this podcast, we talk about sustainable investing and how your portfolio reflects your values. Do your investments seek accountability from corporations that govern more and more of our society and even the lives we lead? Listen in as we explore the question, are you investing like you give a damn?
Hello and welcome to Deep Impact Investing with Kimberly Griego-Kiel from Horizon Sustainable Financial Services. Today, she's got a special guest on, and that is Justin Conway. He's the Vice President of Investment Partnerships at Calvert Impact Capital and has been with the firm since 2006. He has been working in impact investing since 2001 and has served on the boards of Green America and USSIF and currently sits on the boards of Eris Insight. Good morning, you two. How are you?
I'm great, Eric. It's really nice to be here with you again.
Yeah, Eric, nice to meet you and Kim. Know we've known each other for a little while, but tickled pink to be here. Thanks for having me. I guess you can't really see that through a podcast, but I am happy to be here.
Oh, I can hear it in your voice. I'm really.
Yeah, pink comes through audio perfectly.
Yeah.
So that's a great question, Justin. You just let in. How did you guys meet?
I don't remember exactly where we met, but I think probably at a conference somewhere. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I'm assuming it was probably one of the SRI conferences or early predecessors to some of the USSIF meetings out there. But no, we've seen each other in a lot of different settings over the past 15 plus years.
Yeah, absolutely. I think we've probably known each other at least 15 years. So yeah, I've known you before children. So
yes.
It's been a while. Before your children, anyway. Yes. Yeah. So, Justin, before we really get started on our conversation, let's talk a little bit about the basics of community investing. So, because I think some people are going to know what it is, but not everybody will know what exactly community investing is. But yeah, do you want to share a little bit with that, or do you want me to share it? How do you want to? I mean, this is your field. I mean, you know community investing inside and out. So
sure, I think that community investing and what we often call it now broader impact investing. The language can get a little tricky in our field, but really when we're talking about community and deep impact investing, I think we're often talking about how we're investing with the purpose to create social and environmental impact. Of course, it's investing, so alongside the financial returns. But we're really talking often about getting capital, working in communities, financing the solutions that people in planet need, whether that's financing affordable housing or other community services, or creating climate solutions to address the real big social and environmental challenges that we face today.
Yeah, and I think that's what we love so much about community investing is it's often things that are really close to our heart and things that we really want to focus on, and so that's what we love about it. And in my experience, almost every single one of my clients wants to invest in some way in their community or broader communities. But I really want to hear from you. What is the why of investing in your communities? I mean, why invest in your community? Is there a short-term gain? Is there a long-term gain? What's the why? What do you hear?
Yeah, I think the why is really important. And we could get deeply philosophical about this. And I think a lot of investors approach it in just some different ways. But I'd say a couple of things. One why is that the world needs it. Whether it's our climate crisis, widening inequality, the world needs investors to care about these issues and addressing the funding gap that we have to achieve the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, or our people, planet, our economy becomes more challenged and in trouble. And while I think that is kind of the daunting aspect of the why, I think the other why, which is way more positive, is that investors, like you said, actually want to do this. Whether it's the broader interest in that's growing for sustainable and impact investing, I think people are increasingly understanding it's part of their responsibility. And we're seeing that interest across the board. It is driven in many ways by women and millennials who are becoming more active in managing money and are perhaps more willing to challenge some of the old ways of doing things. But I think that, people want to do things in their community. I think impact investing, when you get into kind of what is exciting for you within it, it's just more interesting. It produces better outcomes and stories for communities. And honestly, it's just more memorable and fun. And I think the other thing that people, think about in terms of the why is in community investing is it's more tangible, right? It's building affordable housing or the community center in your town. It's investing in farmers in the U.S. or abroad to produce more sustainable food. It's getting capital to a small entrepreneur that is providing a new service. And I live in Washington, D.C., so when I walk out of my door every morning, I get to see multiple projects as I'm walking to the metro where I know that impact investor dollars help make that project happen. And so it's just, more real and tangible than some of the other investments out there, because you can know what your dollars are doing in the communities you live in and care about. And if you're around, you can see it.
Right. And I remember for us and for some of my clients, one of the most impactful events that we did was a luncheon where you came out here to Santa Fe and we invited our local clients, and you talked about the Calvert Impact Capital investments that were local to our community, to Santa Fe, to New Mexico. And I think that was so important to our clients. You said these are the projects that we have money on the ground.
Yeah, and I think my last answer was more kind of on the progressive side for those of us that are thinking about these big social and environmental challenges. But I think impact investing makes sense kind of across generations, across political bents. It makes sense to a lot of people because everyone wants to do something, good in their community. And so they might not have this deep, I need to invest to solve the world's challenges and change the world. But they, do like their local businesses. They do want to support the health and education and other services within their community. So it's kind of real and can be very local and personal.
Right. Yeah. And I want to talk a little bit later about some stories around some of these things. But let's talk a little technical, because I think these are also important questions, but because some people won't know the answers to these, but let's talk, what type of investment is this? Is this a growth investment? You and I know the answer, but other people don't. So, because people want to know, is this a growth investment? Am I going to get income from it? What kind of investment is a community investment?
Yeah, well, at Calvert Impact Capital, with our community investment node, it's a fixed income security that we offer. And so, therefore, the returns are set up front to provide income and be consistent there for the investor. And there are a range of returns that we provide based on the term that one invests. But I think more broadly, if we're talking about community and impact investments, I think they are financing things that seek to provide financial returns, and they're doing so with the purpose to create impact. But there are a range of options that span risk, return profiles, and structures. So I think they're all about providing positive returns for investors and communities. They can just be in different asset classes. So some are cash and fixed income, where there's that more steady stream of income. And then there are private equity and real assets and some direct community investments that can take on, more equity or other forms where, it's just a different risk return profile. But there's certainly a number of more fixed income options like our community investment note that provide, an income and growth opportunity.
So again, there are a variety of options for folks to look at in terms of community investments. And so it's not a one size fits all. So as I like to remind folks, you can invest in your community in a lot of different ways, and for what fits your particular needs. And I think this is a good point for us to remind people. You should always discuss any type of investment with your financial advisor prior to making that investment, and make sure it makes sense for you. And again, any investment product we discuss is not a specific recommendation for you, as we don't know your particular investment needs or your personal qualifications. So even though we're talking about Justin's particular firm, I'm not making any particular recommendations here. So I have to make that clarification. And so again, when we talk about the high impact community investments, there's a lot of different terms, and there's a lot of different options that people aren't going to be aware of. Like, what's a CDFI? What's a micro enterprise loan? We know there's some mutual funds that do that, and there's pooled investments. And what else am I forgetting? There's lots of these different options. So can we talk about some of the different options that are available?
Sure. So you mentioned CDFIs, which are community development financial institutions. These are community-based banks, credit unions, loan funds, and venture capital funds that have been certified by the U.S. Treasury Department for getting capital at work in low and moderate income areas for affordable housing, small business lending, healthcare, and other critical community services. There are over 1,000 around the country. So they're often ones near to where a person lives or in the communities that they're interested in. You mentioned microfinance and micro enterprise loan funds. There are certainly small business loan funds in the U.S., but often when folks talk about microfinance, they're really referring to small loans to entrepreneurs internationally, and sometimes even to small and medium-sized businesses in those more emerging markets. And so there are a number of options there. And then I think there are the more venture capital fund and community real estate fund, some farmland conservation funds that are out there, and all types of direct investments in private companies and social enterprises, and even crowdfunding. And so I think this in some ways points to one of the challenges I think community impact investing has, is that while it is very broad and it covers all kinds of different asset classes, the options within it aren't necessarily household names. They are community-based organizations. And so it can be kind of daunting to try to understand all of it. And so I think what's important for investors and their advisors, Kim, I know you do this, is kind of really understanding what the investor is, passionate about, what they're interested in, the communities they care about, and kind of use that as the frame from which to have the conversation and find options that are of interest to them, and then also meet their risk return, time horizon, all of those, things that, each individual investor might differ on a little bit. But I think it's trying to find a starting place around what is an issue or place that's really important, and therefore what is the impact investment options that I have that really speak to me.
Right. And I think that's really important, because there's probably something out there for everyone, and different levels of investments for folks to invest in their communities. And for some people, depending on your risk return, you don't necessarily need a lot of money, but some of these investments, you do need a lot of money. Mm-hmm. Some of them require minimum amounts, which are fairly large. And then there's always the question, are they safe investments?
Well, I think as we mentioned to the question there about the safety, given that impact investing spans a wide range of risk return profiles and it goes across asset classes, It's important to know the investment option, the manager, and their track record, and the steps that they take to manage risk, especially if they're investing in underserved and emerging markets. There are many organizations, many that we've mentioned so far, that are proving you can successfully invest in communities. And there are options like banks and credit unions that provide the same government insurance you'd get from a big name bank, but they're community-based banks, putting more of the deposits to work and serving the community. There are fixed income community note programs that have significant capitalization to protect investors from any potential losses that they might have on a project. And so while all investing has risk, I think many investors look to impact investment options kind of within the cash and fixed income asset classes for consistent returns with quite a bit of risk management and track record there.
Right. And I think those are important things to certainly keep in mind. What about limits? Are there any limits to this type of or this class of investments, or should someone limit what they're investing in this area?
Yeah, there aren't limits per se. Of course, different investors have different risk return goals and time horizons, but one can build a diversified portfolio of impact investments, especially if they work with a financial advisor that really knows the space like you do, Kim. I guess the thing I'd stress is that, while we're talking about a lot of different options here, which is exciting for some, I think what's important is to try to get started in impact investing. Start with an option and a manager that you feel good about and trust, and then build from there. I think you'll learn a lot about impact investing by doing it. And doing it in a way that is comfortable and is something that you can then build from and grow on there. I think one of the challenges that, given that there are a lot of options, sometimes people, especially institutional investors, will spend sometimes years trying to understand everything in the space, and they're not getting their capital to work in a way that helps communities or provides that real learning opportunity for them. So often tell people to find something that they feel comfortable starting with, and they'll learn a lot from that.
Right. There's a fine line between having to learn everything first and just starting slowly.
Yeah. Yep.
So just like do a little bit and learn what you're doing and do doing something safe. So what I'd really love now is for you to share with us some interesting stories of the work that Calvert Impact Capital has done over the years and some of the lives that you've affected.
Sure. Mentioned how what is great about impact investing is that there's just so many great stories. So we have just a wealth of them. I'd start, Ken, with an example near you. A group I know you're well aware of, and HomeWise. This is a nonprofit affordable housing organization that's active in Santa Fe and Albuquerque. They provide financing and education, a lot of education to help families know what it takes and then to be able to buy an affordable home, given that that's such an important foundation in people's lives. There's also near you an organization we've worked with for a number of years and also provided some new financing to, is Chicanos por la Casa, which was founded, I think, 50 years ago to really confront some of the oppression facing Latinos in the Southwest, and is now providing a range of community development services throughout Arizona, New Mexico, and Nevada. One of the things that Calvert Impact Capital is known for is really investing for gender equity and women's empowerment. We've seen over the years, we've been doing this now for over 24 years, how women are good investments. they are good on the impact side, and that they're more likely to put any increased income that they have towards their family and education. And they're also better on the credit risk side, as they repay at higher rates and are more likely to ask for help if needed. And so we've been, developing kind of how we can be even more impactful with a women's empowerment focus, and are now doing a lot of clean energy investments. So really getting clean cook stoves and solar lights in the hands of women in Africa, Asia, and Latin America because of the outsized impact it has on women in terms of safety and having more productive time that's not needed to be spent going out and collecting firewood far away from home. The impact and what it means for the family in terms of having access to light and electricity and much better indoor air quality from not burning wood or other former fuels. And certainly the huge environmental impact it has, not only within the home for the people that are breathing the air, but just in terms of our broader environment, and kind of huge CO2 reductions when we move from wood and other sources towards real clean energy. So kind of a huge social and environmental impact. And we've been doing some really interesting environmental investments recently, whether it's reducing the likelihood of forest fires in California. Folks will all remember how devastating that was last summer into fall there, and a lot of the government resources are now trapped and still dealing with that. So there's not a lot of money for prevention, but we've worked with some nonprofits to figure out how to get people to clear the brush there, and ultimately hope reduce the fire risk and improve air and water quality in California, which is something we hope that can be replicated. We here in DC are invested in a major greening the city effort to create green jobs and reduce the stormwater runoff that when it rains here, our sewer system overflows and pollutes our rivers. So that's one that kind of get to see, at least underground, but get to see a number of the greening efforts as walk around certain parts of DC. That's exciting. On the waterfront, which I know is often is becoming an increasing area of interest for investors, is we have a new blue bond, as we call it, that we've invested in to support the improved ocean health in the Seychelles off the coast of Africa. So, one of the exciting things, I could go on with different stories in different communities, and that's really one of the coolest things about impact investing and our portfolio, and that it spans so many impact sectors and geographies that there's something really for everyone. One of the things that we think is great. You mentioned kind of the event that we did in Santa Fe, talking about the local partners. When we're able to tell those stories, or really when we're able to do an impact tour and take folks around to see some of the projects, meet the entrepreneurs, see the school, the health clinic, meet the doctors, meet some families that are now in a good quality, affordable housing. When people see that, it's often an aha moment about, they might have heard of impact investing, but then it's like, oh, that's real. And it's certainly a memorable experience that stays with people. And so that's one of the fun things about the job, is just making those connections for folks and showing how real and tangible the impact can be on families and communities.
Right. I think the stories are really what make it so heartfelt and so important for people. And that's why they really connect with impact and community investment and find it so important, especially when they can start hearing these stories.
Yeah, and I think we often can get, as financial professionals, we are all about the impact metrics and the
Right.
number of jobs and the square footage of affordable housing and what that means. But it sounds like you would agree that your clients are often looking for more of those stories and kind of the outcomes that get
Yes.
produced beyond whether we created. It's important to know how many jobs we create and track these things and all the other impact metrics, but it's really the stories that can resonate with people.
They really want the human impact and the environmental impact. Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's a different type of impact, right? Yeah. But before we go, because we're getting close to time, I really want to give you a couple of minutes to tell us and tell our listeners about Calvert Impact Capital and how folks can find more about your work and how, other than through me, how they can maybe invest.
Sure. Well, Calvert Impact Capital, we are a nonprofit, an interesting one because we offer an investment product, but our mission is to really make impact investable. So we try to connect all types of investors, individuals to institutions, no matter how small or big, to ways that they can really get their capital working in communities and do a lot of good in the world. We see that so many people don't understand that how they save and invest their money is a big part of, how they're voting every day for the world they want to live in. And we hope to help show more of them about, tell these stories, show them the opportunities, connect them and their advisors to all of the great organizations that are really trying to create solutions to our challenges and doing so with a real connection to communities. We take all of the capital that's invested with us, which largely comes through a fixed income security called the Community Investment Note. It's really designed to be the most convenient and risk mitigated way for folks to start doing impact investing. Minimums as low as $20 online or $1,000 in brokerage accounts, earning up to 4% based on the time one invests. And we take all of the capital that we get and we find these great local partners that are creating measurable social and environmental impact in communities. And so we make sure that they're doing great work in their communities and producing the impact, make sure that's aligned, but also do rigorous financial and risk underwriting as well. But we are, one through our community investment note is one way that we connect folks to the great work happening throughout the U.S. and over 100 countries around the world, but also try to be a broader resource as well. You can learn more about us, including our social impact reports and ways to get involved on our website, which is calvertimpactcapital.org. And of course, Kim, you and your business partner, Johan, and Horizons are experts in this space as well. So know us and can answer questions, but also more broadly about some of the other community impact investing options that are out there.
Right. And we certainly do quite a bit of work in this area and love to help our clients with it. Justin, I can't thank you enough for being a guest on our podcast today and sharing this important information with our listeners. Thank you for being here.
Oh, thank you, Kim. Always great to talk with you and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, thanks.
This was great, you guys. Holy cow. Justin, thank you so much for being a guest. I just listening to the impact, the huge list of all the stories that you and your company and the folks that work with you, like Kim, how that all meshes together to truly make a difference. That's heart touching. It really, really is. So thank you so much for being here. And Kim, thank you so much for bringing him on as a guest.
It was my pleasure.
Yeah, Kim. Well, thanks to you and Eric for having me on today. It's been a treat to talk with you both. And again, either one of you or any of your listeners, let me know if we or any of my colleagues here at Calvert Impact Capital can be helpful to them in trying to figure out impact investing.
Outstanding. Thanks again. And thank you all for listening to the Deep Impact Investing Podcast with Kimberly Griego-Kiel. If you have not subscribed to the podcast yet, please click the subscribe now button below. This way, when Kim comes out with a new podcast, it'll show up directly on your listening device. This makes it much easier to share these podcasts with your friends and family. Again, thanks for listening today. For everyone at Horizon Sustainable Financial Services, this is Eric Johnson reminding you to live your best day every day. And we'll see you next time.
Thank you for listening to Deep Impact Investing Podcast, the sustainable, responsible impact investing podcast that shows you how to get your voice heard. It's time to start investing like you give a damn. To ask a question that we can answer on an upcoming podcast, email us at info@horizonssfs.com or join the conversation on Facebook at www.facebook.com/Horizons Sustainable Financial Services. Or give us a call at 505-982-9661. Don't forget to click the subscribe button to be notified when new episodes become available. The companies we may speak about during our podcast are not recommendations for investment only. You and your financial advisor can determine what the right investments are for you and your situation. Horizon Sustainable Financial Services is a registered investment advisor, registered with the state of New Mexico and other jurisdictions were registered or exempted. The information covered and posted represents the views and opinions of the host and or guest and do not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Horizon Sustainable Financial Services. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional investing advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investment planning.